Welcome to This Explainer. I am so excited to share this one with you because today we're taking a trip back in time to a place where childhood was equal parts idyllic nostalgia and, well, low-key physical danger. We're heading to the rural farming community of Chumuckla, Florida, growing up in the mid-20th century. It was a time when the milestones of growing up were very, very different than they are today.
Which brings us to a really fascinating question. What can throwing knives at your feet actually teach you about growing up? It sounds a bit crazy, right? But we're going to look at this amazing juxtaposition between the almost casual danger of a 1950s childhood and the harsh physical realities of adult safety. It's a journey straight from youthful invincibility to hard-earned wisdom.
Section 1. A Chumuckla Rites of Passage. Back in this rural farming community, getting your first pocket knife wasn't just some birthday gift. It was a massive, critical milestone. If you look at Vic Campbell's original Never Without a Knife column, you learn that basically every kid over the age of 6 had one. Not having a knife, it was akin to wearing short pants when all the other guys had moved on to longs. You were practically naked out there. Honestly, reading through these accounts, you really just have to marvel at the sheer survival of a 1950s childhood. But here's the thing. You couldn't just ask for a pocket knife and instantly get one. Oh no, there were strict prerequisites. As Vic's father, Pop, dictated, maturity and depth of character were key requirements. Now, what's profoundly ironic here is what actually constituted maturity for a young boy on a Florida farm back then. It definitely wasn't about making your bed or doing your chores on time. Just look at this progression of sharp instruments you had to master to earn that pocket knife. At age 6, your very first sharp instrument was a small axe. Literally, an axe, just for trimming tree limbs. Once you gained enough maturity with the axe, graduation meant moving to, wait for it, a scalpel at age 7. Uncle Allen, the local veterinarian, would teach these kids how to use a scalpel for radical farm surgery, like neutering young pigs and 400-pound calves. And as the author points out, you really can't be a slow surgeon when a 400-pound calf is actively trying to kick a hole in the side of your head. That, my friends, is where the depth of character came in. So after mastering the axe, the scalpel, and then a fishing knife at age 8, you were finally awarded the ultimate prize at 9, a Barlow pocket knife for everyday carry. Moving into Section 2, the game of Mumbley Peg. Okay, so picture this. You've neutered a calf, you've chopped wood, and you finally have your prized pocket knife. What is the ultimate test for your shiny new tool? Well, it was a legendary, incredibly tense game. For those of us who didn't grow up playing this, let's define it. Mumbley Peg is a traditional game where players literally take turns throwing a pocket knife into the dirt, aiming as close to their own feet as possible. And the absolute undeniable rule? You cannot flinch. Back in 1950s Chumuckla, you had local kids like Foster Turnipseed. And by the way, his actual nickname was, I kid you not, Two-Toe. Two-Toe was an absolute master at Mumbley Peg, and he played the game entirely barefoot, never once flinching. Now, contrast that with the author's realization years later in the corporate world. Today, safety rules would absolutely require steel-toed boots just to step onto the field for a game like that. The comedic contrast between barefoot mid-century danger and our strict modern safety standards is just hilarious. Which brings us to Section 3, Short-Fingered Uncle Wisdom. So, shifting from that romanticized invincibility of childhood to the slightly harsher reality of adulthood, parents in this rural community gave some pretty specific advice. Listen to your uncles. Uncles were considered the absolute prime source of practical knowledge. I mean, they held a lifetime of hard-earned, on-the-ground experience, and they were always eager to pass those lessons down to the next generation. Take Uncle J.B. Hartzog, for instance. He married into the family right before the Great Depression hit, earning a lifetime of experience in just a few short years of absolute deprivation. Yet, despite being incredibly poor, he maintained this deep, unwavering optimism. His famous catchphrase to the kids was always this: look at the bright side. There is always somebody worse off than yourself. Things aren't as bad as they seem. But you've got to hear the winking punchline to Uncle JB's optimism. Years after the Depression, he was working at a soft drink bottling plant. Well, he got a little too close to a fast-moving bottle capping device, and it cleanly severed the tip of his right index finger, and it actually bottled it. So whenever Uncle JB would enthusiastically point out the bright side of life to his nephews, he was quite literally pointing with a famously shortened index finger. And then we have Uncle Claude Hendricks.
He owned the Dixie Dandy grocery over in Geneva, Alabama. Uncle Claude was another respected mentor who loved to dispense solid, practical financial advice. His favorite gem was, "It's okay to spend your money, but it is best to spend it on things that last." He was also a real authority on the town and loved pointing out the complex flood levees that protected Geneva from the river. Now, I bet you can guess exactly where this is going. When Uncle Claude proudly pointed at those impressive engineering marvels, he was also pointing with a noticeably short index finger. Yep, he had lost the tip of his finger long ago during a little mishap involving a side of bacon and a very sharp knife. So you've got two wise uncles, two lifetimes of incredible practical advice, and two missing fingertips. Section 4. Maturity and safety first. We've kind of bridged the gap here between the wild, youthful invincibility of throwing knives at bare feet and the highly physical, permanent evidence of adulthood that the uncles carried around. If you press the author to say which lesson from his uncles was the absolute most valuable, it boils down to one bold, kind of hilarious axiom: be very careful where you stick your fingers. Honestly, that right there is the true essence of maturity and safety. It's just so funny how the physical scars of the older generation provide the most memorable guardrails for the younger one. So the next time you pick up a tool or a knife, or frankly are just navigating life's everyday hazards, will you remember the short-fingered wisdom of Chamakla? I know I for sure will. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and hey, remember to always look at the bright side. Just make sure you watch where you put your hands while you do it.